Khajeh Nasir al-Din al-Tusi, born in Tus as Abu Jafar Muhammad, was renowned for his thirst for knowledge. After studying with his father, he sought further education at Sarajia school in Nishapur. He then learned from scholars like Qutb al-Din Ibrahim al-Misri and Attar of Nishapur. Following the Mongol invasions, he lived in Ismaili strongholds. After the invasion of Hulagu Khan, he entered the Mongol court, saving many lives. A key legacy of his work was the construction of the Maragheh Observatory. He passed away on June 26, 1274 AD, leaving behind a legacy as one of Iran's greatest scientists post-Islamic era. In the city of Qom, there lived a knowledgeable and wise man named Wajieddin Muhammad ibn Hassan. Wajieddin was one of the prominent scholars and teachers of Qom. He decided to embark on a journey to visit the eighth Imam revered by Shia Muslims, Imam Reza, in Mashhad, along with his family. Accompanied by his family, he traveled to Mashhad and performed the pilgrimage. Afterwards, they decided to return to their hometown, Qom. During their journey, they arrived in the city of Tus, where Wajieddin's wife fell ill. Their stay in Tus became prolonged, and the local dignitaries suggested that Wajieddin should remain in the city and not return to Qom. In Tus, there were favorable conditions for Wajieddin to conduct classes, and there were students seeking an experienced teacher. Wajieddin commenced his life in Tus by organizing classes and providing necessary education to students and seminarians. After a while, Wajieddin and his wife became parents to a son, whom they named Abu Jafar Muhammad. However, Wajieddin affectionately called him Muhammad. Wajieddin himself initially became Muhammad's first teacher and provided him with basic education. This way, one of Iran's great scholars was born in the city of Tus. Muhammad learned the fundamentals of science, calligraphy, and Arabic and Persian languages from his father. After a period, Wajieddin sent his son, who was in his teenage years, to study under other scholars who resided in Tus to acquire further knowledge. Muhammad had a strong passion for learning and was constantly engaged in reading. He even sought out books that his father was not teaching him and learned from them. He spent some time among the other scholars in Tus, but he felt that they were not imparting anything new to him. Eventually, these very scholars acknowledged that the knowledge Muhammad sought was extensive in Tus, and they had nothing new to teach him. It was during this time that Muhammad's father fell ill. While at his father's bedside, Wajieddin called his son and told him to go to Naysapur because there were experienced scholars there. His father instructed him to attend the Sarajia school in Naysapur and benefit from the knowledge of the scholars there. Muhammad decided to heed his father's advice and travel from Tus to Naysapur for further education. One of Muhammad's other teachers was his uncle. Muhammad's uncle helped him to pack his belongings, and prepared him for the journey to Naysapur. The scholars in Tus bestowed upon Muhammad the title of Khajeh Nasir, and this became his name, making him Khajeh Nasir al-Tusi. Before Muhammad left the city of Naysapur, his father, who was bedridden with illness, passed away. Naysapur was facing numerous difficulties in those years due to foreign invasions and had suffered significant damage. Additionally, the main centers of education, mosques, and schools were also destroyed during these attacks, leading to the loss of several valuable books. One of the primary concerns was the absence of scholars and prominent figures in the city because, due to the city's instability, many of these scholars had left Naysapur and traveled to safer regions. Despite all these challenges, Naysapur remained a scholarly hub, and people still chose Naysapur for their education. Khajeh Nasir al-Tusi also decided to go to Naisapur to pursue various fields of knowledge. He followed his father's instructions and enrolled at the Sirajieh school. His instructor there was a man named Imam Sirajuddin. Khajeh Nasir met with Imam Sirajuddin and mentioned his father's deep respect for him and how he had come to the school upon his father's request. Imam Sirajuddin recognized Khajeh Nasir's passion for learning and offered him a comfortable room within the school premises for his studies. There's a fascinating historical context about the Sirajieh school in Naisapur. During that era, it's indeed noteworthy that both Shia and Sunni students were studying together with teachers who were also from both sects, and there was no conflict between them. This harmony existed while the influence of religious beliefs was at its peak. At that time, the Mongol invasions had not yet taken place. Khajeh Nasir al-Tusi benefited from the presence of these scholars and got familiar with the works of Avicenna during his studies at the Sirajieh school. His encounter with the works of Avicenna marked a pivotal moment in his life. He acquired Avicenna's Isharat, the Book of Pointers, at the Sirajieh school and decided to delve deeper into Avicenna's works. He was advised to meet with some scholars in Naisapur who were not part of the Sirajieh school but were well versed in Avicenna's works. To further his understanding of Avicenna's philosophy, Khajeh Nasir left the Sirajieh school and sought the guidance of a scholar known as Qutbuddin Ibrahim al-Misri, who was given the title Misri, Egyptian, due to his studies in Egypt, not his origin. Under Misri's guidance, Khajeh Nasir al-Tusi studied Avicenna's The Canon of Medicine. During his time in Naisapur, Khajeh Nasir al-Tusi experienced favorable circumstances and passed his days with great enthusiasm. However, he still harbored an unfulfilled desire to meet the great scholar of Naisapur, Atta of Naisapur. Khajeh Nasir al-Tusi's meeting with Atta of Naisapur was a momentous encounter. Atta was a prominent figure during his lifetime, with many disciples and admirers who aspired to meet him. A plan was devised to arrange a meeting between Khajeh Nasir and Atta. When Khajeh Nasir finally met Atta, they engaged in their first conversation. In this meeting, Khajeh Nasir expressed his admiration for Atta, recounting how his father and uncle had spoken highly of him and how he had always longed to meet him. Atta, taken aback by the young man's enthusiasm and the apparent contradiction of a medical student engaging in poetry and literature, asked Khajeh Nasir to recite a poem. This recitation led to a growing appreciation for the talented youth. In subsequent meetings and gatherings organized by Khajeh Nasir Atta of Naisapur continued to support and encourage him, even recommending to others that they should show respect to the young scholar, given his remarkable talents. However, Khajeh Nasir began to feel that Naisapur could no longer fulfill his thirst for knowledge. The local scholars could not answer his growing intellectual inquiries. Recognizing that it was time to seek greater horizons for his education, he decided to depart from Naisapur. Khajeh Nasir's journey in pursuit of knowledge took him from Naisapur to Ray, and then to Qom, but he couldn't find a suitable astronomy teacher in these places. Therefore, he decided to return to his homeland, Khorasan. In Qom, he continued his search for an astronomy teacher but was still unable to find one who could satisfy his thirst for knowledge. His quest for astronomical education continued, and he soon set his sights on traveling to Iraq. Khajeh Nasir's journey to Iraq was prompted by the recommendations of scholars he had met in Ray and Qom. They advised him to travel to Iraq, where he could find accomplished astronomy instructors. In pursuit of this goal, he joined a caravan and set off toward Iraq. Upon arriving in Iraq and its capital, Baghdad, Khajeh Nasir was exposed to distressing news about the Mongol invasions. The rumors spoke of the Mongols wreaking havoc and engaging in widespread violence near the borders of Iran. Despite the Mongol invasion's harsh realities, Khajeh Nasir remained in Baghdad, as the situation remained relatively peaceful for a time. He pursued astronomy in Mosul during this uncertain period. Mosul, a bustling and influential city, was renowned for its achievements in the field of astronomy. Khajeh Nasir journeyed to Mosul to study under prominent astronomy scholars. He engaged in learning the intricacies of astronomy and made regular trips between Baghdad and Mosul to receive his education. Khajeh Nasir, despite his dedication to learning, was deeply concerned about the dire circumstances of his family in Tus. News of cities like Naysapur, Ray, Maragheh, and Kazvin falling to the Mongols left him despondent. There were reports of the Khwarezmian Sultan Muhammad Khwarezmshah's mysterious disappearance, while his son Sultan Jalaluddin was battling with the Mongols. The distressing information that Khajeh Nasir al-Tusi received from his fellow scholars in Mosul, particularly about the tragic fate of the renowned poet and scholar Attar of Naysapur, ruined him. These reports painted a grim picture of the Mongol conquests and left him deeply saddened. Khajeh Nasir al-Tusi embarked on his return journey to Tus amidst the turbulent and dire circumstances of the time. With a heavy heart and a keen sense of the suffering around him, he encountered harrowing scenes along the way. Civilians who had lost their homes and livelihoods were wandering, many suffering from hunger and deprivation. In every town and city he passed through, he witnessed the ominous presence of Mongol soldiers. Books and libraries, centers of knowledge, were reduced to ashes, and corpses lay unburied. The Ismailis, a Shia sect known for their esoteric beliefs and political activities, were offered as a sanctuary for those seeking refuge from the Mongol onslaught. Their strongholds provided a measure of security during these turbulent times. The Ismailis had originally emerged during the rule of Hassan Sabah but later diversified their political activities, sometimes using force to achieve their goals. Khajeh Nasir traveled through some cities in search of scholars and dignitaries. These scholars had either been killed by the Mongols or had gone into hiding. As Khajeh Nasir approached the city of Tus, he saw the ruined gates from a distance. Upon entering the city, he saw the city turned into a wasteland. There, he encountered an acquaintance who informed him that his family had moved from Tus to Ka'en. Without wasting any time, Khajeh Nasir quickly made his way to Ka'en. Ka'en was a small city and didn't draw much attention from the Mongols. In Ka'en, he reunited with his family and decided to stay there for a while. It was in Ka'en that he got married, and the conditions were relatively calm. It was during his time in Ka'en that he received news of the death of Genghis Khan. For the first time in that city, he encountered the Ismailis. There are two theories regarding Khajeh Nasir's meeting with the Ismailis. One theory suggests that he had a strong connection with the Ismailis and visited their castles by his own choice. The second theory proposes that he did not go there willingly and the Ismailis kidnapped him and held him in captivity. In any case, the Ismailis had extensive libraries and powerful scientific resources. They provided Khajeh Nasir with access to all of these books, marking a new chapter in his life within the Ismaili strongholds. To minimize his interactions with the Ismailis, he immersed himself in his studies. During this period, he wrote many significant works that have endured to this day, such as his commentary on Avicenna's Shifa, the Book of Healing, the analysis of Euclid's Elements, and the Ethics of Nasiri. Khajeh Nasir spent many years within the Ismaili castles. During this time, he developed stronger relationships with the people and occasionally visited the castle's prisons to meet with the inmates. This caused his relations with the Ismaili leaders to become strained. His children were born in the Ismaili castles, and they had no right to leave. His eldest son, named Sadr-ed-Din Ali, was among them. Khajeh Nasir-ed-Din could not bear these conditions and wanted his son to grow up outside and interact with other children. He took on the responsibility of teaching his son himself. Khajeh Nasir-ed-Din reflects on those dark days in the castle of Alamut. I wrote most of these books in such hardship that it could not have been any harder. Often, I contemplated it during times of confusion and difficulty. It was a time when every part of it was a vessel for sorrow, painful torment, remorse, and regret, such that it could not become any more bewildering. The presence of the Ismailis and their rule in Iran posed a political threat to the Mongols. Therefore, Hulagu Khan, one of the descendants of Genghis Khan, led an expedition towards the city of Khajeh, which was one of the strongholds of the Ismailis. Hulagu Khan managed to capture the city and lay siege to the Khajeh castle. During this time, Khajeh Nasir-ed-Din was inside the castle and advised the castle's ruler to surrender to Hulagu Khan as soon as possible. He warned of the bloodshed and violence that would ensue if they resisted. Initially, the castle's ruler resisted and intended to put up a fight. However, Khajeh Nasir-ed-Din persuaded him. Eventually in 1253-1254 AD, the Khajeh castle fell to Hulagu Khan. This was a significant event, and the people inside the castle, as well as the Ismaili rulers, had mixed feelings about Khajeh Nasir-ed-Din. Some showed him respect, while others criticized him. On the other hand, Hulagu Khan was intrigued by this elderly scholar, who had managed to surrender the castle without any bloodshed. Hulagu Khan had a strong interest in Khajeh Nasir-ed-Din and instructed his companions to bring the knowledgeable individual to him so he could become more acquainted with him. Khajeh Nasir-ed-Din was brought to Hulagu Khan, and a conversation ensued. Hulagu Khan suggested that he enter their court, as his intelligence and wisdom would be of great value to them. Khajeh Nasir-ed-Din was faced with a difficult decision, not knowing whether to accept or decline this offer. If he declined, the bloodshed and warfare would continue, but if he entered the court, he might be able to mitigate the extent of the Mongol violence. Khajeh Nasir-ed-Din told Hulagu Khan that he was not afraid of death and was willing to assist him, but he had a few conditions. When Hulagu Khan saw this audacity, his interest in Khajeh Nasir-ed-Din grew several times over. One of Khajeh Nasir-ed-Din's conditions was that the books in the Ismaili library should not be burned. Hulagu Khan accepted this condition. The second condition was that he would assist in conducting numerous negotiations and engaging with many enemies to prevent bloodshed, which Hulagu Khan also agreed to. Until today, many people still criticize Nasir-ed-Din and claim that he was the one who increased the power of the Mongols. On the other hand, his supporters argue that there was no other option. When Nasir-ed-Din entered the Mongol court, he saved the lives of many people and prevented bloodshed. 5 years later, in 1258-1259 AD, the entire Ismaili dynasty was overthrown, and the Mongols turned towards the Abbasid rule. During his campaigns and conquests, Hulagu Khan always had Khajeh Nasir-ed-Din by his side, seeking his advice. Hulagu Khan himself was a person who valued scholars and scientists. There are two theories about the Mongol invasion of the Abbasids. One theory suggests that Khajeh Nasir-ed-Din's conflict with the Abbasids led Hulagu Khan to move against them, resulting in a war. The second theory, however, tells us something else. According to this theory, Hulagu Khan was an ambitious conqueror who intended to move against the Abbasids and overthrow their rule. The first theory cannot be true because all historical sources indicate that Khajeh Nasir-ed-Din was averse to war and bloodshed. During that time, the Abbasids were on the verge of collapse. Al-Mustasim, the Abbasid caliph, was oppressing the people in the final days. Hulagu Khan marched on Baghdad, and with the conquest of the city, the Abbasid rule came to an end. In this process, Khajeh Nasir ad-Din saved the lives of many Iraqi Muslims and helped minimize bloodshed. Here, Khajeh Nasir ad-Din al-Tusi also advised Hulagu Khan not to burn the books, as they were valuable scientific resources. Hulagu Khan agreed with this suggestion and entrusted the books to Khajeh Nasir ad-Din al-Tusi. Khajeh Nasir ad-Din requested Hulagu Khan to allocate a budget for an observatory in Maragheh, recognizing his strong interest in astronomy, as a reward for their conquests. One of the lasting legacies of Khajeh Nasir ad-Din is the construction of an observatory known as Maragheh Observatory. This observatory is located 74 kilometers north of Mashhad. It served the purpose of assisting caravans, studying the days of the year, and conducting astronomical observations. In 1259–1260 AD, the construction of the Maragheh Observatory began. It appears that the Maragheh Observatory was not just an observatory for stargazing, it was more like a university. Khajeh Nasir ad-Din had transferred all the books he had collected from the Ismaili and Abbasid eras to Maragheh. Various classes and lectures were held inside the observatory, and scholars from China and Europe came there to acquire knowledge. During this period, Hulagu Khan of the Mongols also passed away, but the Maragheh Observatory project was still incomplete. Khajeh Nasir ad-Din al-Tusi stood alone against the other Khans, Mongol rulers, and ensured that no one would interfere with the observatory project. He brought a group of messengers and instructed them to find the scholars and convince them to return to Iran and settle in Maragheh to continue their work. Scientific matters had been neglected for some time, and people were merely focused on self-preservation. However, these favorable scientific conditions were re-established, and Muslims returned to Iran. Khajeh Nasir ad-Din al-Tusi, after a life full of ups and downs and the establishment of the Maragheh Observatory, became severely ill and weak. His son, Sadr-ed-Din Ali, who had a wealth of knowledge from his father, was by his side and cared for him. Khajeh Nasir ad-Din passed away on the 26th of June 1274 AD. He was buried in Iraq, in the shrine of Kazemayan. In Iran, they designated the 5th of Isfand, the last month of the Persian calendar, or 24th of February as National Engineers Day in honor of Khajeh Nasir ad-Din al-Tusi's birthday. In commemoration of his name, one of the craters on the moon was named after him. In 2013, Google dedicated its homepage logo to this scientist on his birthday, though it was only accessible in Arab countries, which led to protests from Iranians. Ibn Khaldun, a prominent Arab scholar, regarded Khajeh Nasir ad-Din as the greatest Iranian scientist after the Islamic era. Khajeh Nasir ad-Din al-Tusi, during the dark period of Mongol rule and amidst widespread violence and bloodshed, saved the lives of many Iranians. If you enjoyed this video, do not forget to like it, and share it with your friends. Do not hesitate to provide your view regarding this video by putting your comments below. Your comments would help us to improve our work, and also, they help us to take your views into account for the future topics that we select. Furthermore, you can subscribe to our channel to become aware of our new videos.